Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of how to use Midjourney, I want to first zoom all the way out and talk about generative AI when it comes to photo generation from a wide perspective. And it's really fascinating how they've trained a model like Midjourney to produce imagery from a text prompt. Up until this point, we've been working a lot more with text-based LLMs, and now we're getting more into the graphic design and image creation section. So the process for this type of LLM is similar but different from something like GPT. Now, there is the same process of having massive data sets that act as the training data for the LLM. In this case, it was millions and millions and millions of different photos. Now, for this model, it was trained on grouped keywords with specific images. So let's take the keyword Apple. The model was trained on thousands and thousands and thousands of different colored apples with different colored lighting and different colored situations, and noise and distortion essentially was added on top of these training images. And what ended up happening is that you would start to get a very blurry, staticky image that the model was then designed to redraw from scratch. So you start with a very clean image, there's all this image distortion overlaid on it, and the model's operation is to then redraw it so it gets back to a perfectly crisp and clean image. Now, repeating that process millions and millions and millions of times over the course of thousands of different types of photos of an apple per se, made the model extremely good at drawing an apple from scratch. And this process repeated and repeated again and again. On top of that, there are essentially two different versions of the model. There's the model that's creating the images and trained on that process. And then there's a part of the model that's trained to critique and to basically give the drawing model a score as if it's a teacher grading a student's piece of artwork. Now, this back and forth process trained and fine-tuned both parts of this model that essentially just made this model an expert at generating images. After the stage of the training process, the next step was to go through supervised learning, where now human intervention was made to then critique the images that were being created by Midjourney. This was about the nuances that the models themselves don't quite understand around composition, around lighting, around the little subtleties that make an aesthetically pleasing image. So on top of that base layer of the model training itself millions of times, there was this final stage of supervised learning where a score was given to the outputs by Midjourney and basically training a whole nother layer of generating an aesthetically pleasing image. So that is a very high-level overview of how generative AI creates images. Now, in this section, we're going to go through the process from the complete fundamentals all the way to generating incredibly complex and specific prompts. But before we do that, I do want to hop over to Midjourney and just show you really quick how incredible this tool really is. Okay, so here we are in Midjourney, and like I mentioned, I just want to start off with something fun. So I'm going to type in /imagine, and the prompt I'm going to do is a Star Wars style smartphone, high definition, and ultra realistic. And just like that, within a matter of seconds, we've already generated something that, honestly, a year ago would have taken a graphic designer hours, if not days, to refine. And this is just simply with using the English language, with just using a handful of words. Now, this is why this is such an exciting time to be living in, and that this is such an amazing tool to use. So what I want to do next is slightly change this prompt where it's Star Wars style smartwatch, high definition, and ultra realistic. So now we have 4 different renditions of a completely different subject or object in our image just by changing one word, but we're still getting the Star Wars look and feel, and these are all really interesting. What I'm going to do is hit U2 to make a more high-res version of our top right option. So now I could download this full res, but just for this little intro activity, I wanna also do one more thing. And I'm gonna click Vary Region, and I'm gonna highlight the face of the watch. I'm gonna delete this, and we're gonna highlight right here. And I'm gonna type in the prompt, and don't worry, we're gonna dive deeply into this process later in the chapter, but I wanna type in lush nature with vines and foliage, because I'm really curious to see what Midjourney is gonna do, taking a more techie, modern, basically product photography, and slapping on something creative and really that takes a lot of finessing to really merge this nature-based prompt cleanly with a watch mock-up without it looking cheesy. Cool. So we have these different blended images. I'm gonna upscale number 3, so I'm gonna hit U3 to upscale. And then we're gonna download our high-res version. And there we have our full resolution Star Wars style watch with lush nature intertwined and ingrained into the image just in a matter of seconds. So I hope that this was a fun introduction to AI art generation. And like I said, we're gonna be diving into all of the specifics in this chapter, and I will see you in the next lesson.